Beyond Borders, a trip abroad from Belgium and Germany, covering issues that matter to you, with hosts David Wagner and Monica Quintero.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The images seen around the world, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and November 9th marked the 30th anniversary.
Everywhere we felt this freedom and we felt this moment of openness.
Some were sad, some were confused.
From the EU to NATO, we spent 2 weeks and countless hours meeting with top leaders.
Just so important, especially in this day and age, that Americans understand the world, what's going on outside the U.S.
Our group of journalists started in Brussels, Belgium, the next stop Cologne, then the city of Erfurt, and finally, we wrapped up our 2-week tour in Berlin. We learned Europe battles many of the same issues as America, in particular immigration.
There's no real immigration law.
Plus, we saw some top attractions filled with history.
I was very much impressed.
It's all part of the Rias Berlin Commission, founded back in 1992 by the late U.S. President George H.W. Bush and German Chancellor Helmut Kohl.
An exchange program for American and German journalists, giving them the chance to learn from one another. And our hope is to expand your knowledge as well.
Thank you for joining us for the special report from Berlin, Germany. I'm David Wagner.
And I'm Monica Quintero. We are right next to the Berlin Wall. And we begin with a controversial topic in America, that of immigration and the border wall.
Many believe there are some comparisons to be made between the two. You be the judge.
These were really exciting times when Germany lost this terrible wall that divided not only the city here in Berlin, but all of the country for too many years.
I also met people who are not very happy with the situation. From one day to another, everything is new.
Even today, 30 years later, mixed emotions still surround the fall of the Berlin Wall. Maria Gonzalez is a veteran from West Texas. She saw the collapse firsthand.
I remember when the Berlin Wall came down, because I was stationed there, and it was huge. Some were happy, some were sad, some were confused.
The concrete barrier divided Berlin from 1961 to 1989. The American, British, and French-occupied West Berlin. The Soviet Union took over East Berlin. And the tension became known as the Cold War.
The term wall is, for them, is a very emotionally loaded term.
We talk about your border wall a lot here as well.
These three German journalists have covered stories on both walls and gave us some insight.
To them, there has to be a better solution than putting up something as painful and as truly divisive as a wall.
And I think you have a certain sensitivity when it comes to that here in Germany.
On the other hand, some people believe the two don't have anything in common.
I think it's a little bit like mixing apples and oranges. It was capitalism winning over communism.
In Germany, if somebody was caught going across the wall, they would, of course, shoot him and kill him.
So the debate continues. It's up to you to decide whether it could be a case of history repeating itself.
The Berlin Wall Memorial honors those who lost their lives in connection with the East German border regime. At least 140 people were killed or died at the wall. About 250 travelers also died during or after they had gone through checkpoints at the Berlin border crossings.
This side of the Berlin Wall is called the East Side Gallery and has paintings all up and down, this being one of the most famous ones. We were able to speak with the artist who spearheaded the whole project.
It's been a real fight by me and my other artist colleagues to try to preserve this.
This part of the wall was built in 1975. Meet Connie Alavi. When the Berlin Wall fell, he was a young artist living in an apartment that overlooked the border between East and West Berlin. He says he painted that emotional moment His creative mural is called It Happened in November.
Nach Westen, in die Freiheit kommen.
And that's the image I had in my mind. That's what I saw when I looked out my window of all these people coming through and the feeling of happiness and joy and euphoria that they had on their faces when they came through that checkpoint Charlie right outside my window.
Für die nachkommende Generation.
I think it'll be here in 30 years and I think it will be here in 100 years, and it's because the people want it.
There are more than 100 murals along the East Side Gallery with an estimated 800,000 visitors each year. As for Alavi, he also migrated to Germany. In 1980, he left a troubled Iran for a divided Berlin.
3 terms define different types of immigration. The differences between the 3 sometimes get lost in translation. They are asylum seekers, refugees, and economic migrants.
An asylum seeker is someone seeking international protection from another country. A refugee is a person who fled his or her own country due to fear of being persecuted. A refugee typically escapes war-torn countries filled with violence.
And here's where it gets tricky. There is a big difference between refugees and what are called economic migrants. An economic migrant leaves his or her country purely for financial and/or economic reasons. The bottom line, they move in order to find a better life, not because their life is in danger.
It was either we stay in the country and die or escape our lives. So we don't have much of a choice.
A Syrian refugee shares his emotional story of risking it all to escape violence. In fact, Faria Zachary never wanted to leave his country.
It's the central citadel in Aleppo. Surrounded, I survived in the country for 4 years during the war, during the siege, during the bombs, during the missiles and everything.
His dangerous journey to Germany took 2 grueling months.
In Turkey, I took a bus to Izmir.
Along the way, his boat sank, so on that stormy, cold, dark night, he swam in the sea for 3.5 hours. He says thoughts of his wife and child were what kept him going. 2 of the escapees with him died in those waters.
It's always a 50-50 chance of surviving.
His story is similar to what we're hearing here in America. Many Central American refugees fleeing for their lives. And just like in the U.S., there's major controversy surrounding immigration policies.
We have to separate between migrants and refugees. We want to help people in need, but if we take in people as migrants, we want to have clear rules on that.
Beatrix von Storck is part of a German party that wants to tighten control over immigration. Among their arguments, refugees committing crimes, and her party also stresses Germany can't help everyone. To give you a perspective on the situation, since 2015, more than 1.5 million people have arrived in Germany seeking asylum. The country itself is about half the size of Texas.
Actually, it's the biggest city in Syria. I remember that I was bringing my wife from the bank. We're getting home with my son in our car, and then I was waiting in the traffic light. It turned green, we took off. 30 seconds later, a bomb landed in the same spot, killing 8 people at once. At that moment, I realized that every single second I'm staying in this country, I'm risking the life of my family.
So keen, my life unfolding.
We also met 15-year-old Sasha Yankovic. The teen is a first-generation German citizen. His parents immigrated here from Serbia. Many Serbian citizens want to leave their country in search of a better life and better-paying jobs.
For being so young, he's very much in tune with politics in his country and around the world. His hope is to see the world and share his experiences through his musical talent.
And I want to reach people with my music, you know? With the things I feel.
Yakovic made it clear that he did not plan to live in Germany the rest of his life.
No, I don't need those things, baby, 'cause I have myself.
With the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down, one of the hot topics for most Germans is why are we trying to put up a border wall, but also gun control.
Of course, that's a big issue in the States with all the mass shootings we've seen. We took an in-depth look at the issue here in Germany, and they talked to us about the policies they implemented.
Oh my God! They're shooting right now, they're shooting.
It was all a blur because it just happened so fast.
We have to do something. I don't know what the answer is, but people need to come together to find an answer.
Back in August, a shooting rampage in Odessa and Midland claimed the lives of 7 people and left more than 20 injured. Also in Texas that same month, a gunman shot and killed 22 people in El Paso and injured 24 others, and the list of mass shootings across the United States seems to keep growing.
There are a lot of guns in Germany, but
Eric Kirschbaum has lived in both worlds.
I grew up in New York and Connecticut and went to college in Wisconsin.
He's now a journalist based in Germany.
Germans have a hard time understanding, and I think not just Germans, a lot of people around the world have a hard time understanding why there's so many gun deaths in the United States.
A new Weapons Act took effect in 2003 after a school shooting in the city of Erfurt, Germany. A student killed 16 people. More gun reform took place in 2009 in response to a massacre at Winden. An 18-year-old killed 15 people in another school shooting.
German parliament clamped down even more on these rules and made it even tougher for people to get hands on guns that didn't have a license.
The U.S. Library of Congress describes the German gun control system as one of the most stringent in Europe. A constitutional right to bear arms is not part of the German legal tradition. It restricts possession to those with a so-called credible need for a weapon. It also bans fully automatic weapons. Authorities at any time may request access.
If you have a history of causing problems, breaking the law, the police have the right to take your gun away from you.
But would the German system work in the United States? The debate has raged for years between gun rights advocates on one side and supporters of tightening gun laws.
We're not doing all we can with protective orders where judges have actually said this individual shouldn't have a firearm. They're suspected of domestic violence or stalking or sexual assault.
Things that aren't going to infringe on the Second Amendment, but common sense solutions that just make it more difficult for shooters to, commit crimes against people.
From changes to gun sales to social media tracking, Texas lawmakers made clear they're exploring even more solutions after those deadly mass shootings in El Paso and Odessa.
Still to come on this special report from Berlin, Germany.
We used to live with the east of Europe like a threat, and we were happy to be with NATO.
Controversy surrounds defense spending among NATO allies.
Aufbahrung vor dem Reichstagsgebäude.
And an incredible show, which reminds us of Germany's turbulent history. That's all straight ahead.
Beyond Borders, a trip abroad.
We're now in front of the Reichstag building, which is one of the most important historic buildings here in Germany. It was completed in 1894.
It serves as a meeting place of the German Bundestag, which is the national parliament. The Bundestag is now composed of 709 members and was established back in 1949. It can be compared to the United States House of Representatives.
Earlier, we told you Germany is half the size of Texas. There are only 16 federal states in that country.
We made a stop in the city of Erfurt. It's the capital and largest city in the state of Thuringia. A deputy chairman talked with us about the state parliament there. It's similar to the state senate here.
I always believe within Western democracies we can learn from each other. This means we can learn from Americans, more being freedom-loving, being more entrepreneurial. And on the other hand, I believe Americans can also learn a little bit. The state also can be involved in taking care of everyone.
While there's always debate surrounding big issues, many Germans seem to be proud of their healthcare system, as well as their public school system.
Das Reichstagsgebäude.
Near the Reichstag building, there's a screening of a giant multimedia film on the German parliament. It spans from its early days in the late 19th century until today.
Im selben Jahr wird der ehemalige Generalstabschef
Along with its interesting history, the new illumination scheme reduces the energy needed to power the external lighting of the building. It's expected to save an average of 60% of the energy in the future.
Another hot topic among Americans and Germans, defense spending at NATO. President Trump has publicly attacked NATO allies, including Germany, over that. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO members have pledged to spend 2% of their gross domestic product on defense spending by 2024. The GDP is the value of economic activity within a country.
The goal is 2%, but the commitment is to move towards 2% and not how fast to reach it.
When the wall came down and it seemed to us as if the whole world and Europe would be united, we lost our sense for a possible threat. And things have changed.
This year, NATO is celebrating 70 years. Here's another top attraction in Berlin, the Brandenburg Gate.
It's once a symbol of a divided nation and now a symbol of unity and peace.
It was also the backdrop of U.S. President Ronald Reagan's 1987 famous speech.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The staging was powerful. The 40th president there at the height of the Cold War. The East Berlin security post visible behind him. President Reagan emphasized freedom and reunification.
Historians debate whether his challenge helped bring down the Berlin Wall more than 2 years later. Still to come on this special report from Berlin, Germany.
We need to do even more to prevent the outbreak and the spread of hatred, because otherwise we're condemned to many of the same crimes we thought we left behind us.
Remembering the Holocaust, more on remembering its terrible history, and a look at similar problems we're seeing today.
And here's something much different. Germans pay a monthly fee for their public news. The pros and cons when we come back.
The whole idea is stupid, you know, instead of locking your love, just go make some love. Like, that's even better.
Some popular attractions in Europe aren't popular with everyone. From the love locks to an amazing cathedral. We'll show you around a little later.
And the idea of all the public television and radio stations is not to make money at all. They are there to serve the German people.
We also spent some time learning about the German news industry, and what may surprise you is Germans pay a fee for public television and radio.
They say it could be one reason there's a major contrast between their viewers and Americans. The media landscape in Germany is vastly different than in the United States. Bottom line, Germans have to pay for much of their news.
Make television independent from government, from the state.
In fact, households in that country pay about 17.5 euros a month. That's a little more than $19 a month.
If the ratings go down, then it's not so bad because we have our public fees anyway.
People are very concerned in the issues, what's going on in the world, what kind of conflicts do we have, how safe are we?
However, it's not a foolproof system.
Every station has a board, and on these boards there are politicians, and every once in a while, of course, there's some debate about some program or whatever, so there is, I would say, a little political influence.
We also paid a visit to a historical museum in the city of Erfurt. It highlights a dark time in German history, the Holocaust, the genocide of an estimated 11 million people. 6 million of those victims were Jewish.
History needs to be remembered, because if we don't, we can't move forward.
Deidre Berger is the Senior European Affairs Advisor for AJC Europe, a global Jewish advocacy group. She's an American with family ties to Texas who's been working in Germany for 35 years.
We're seeing, unfortunately, a resurgence of open anti-Semitism, of racism, of xenophobia in Germany, in all parts of the transatlantic world at the moment, in Europe, in the United States.
Her hope? To maintain a culture of memory regarding the Holocaust, especially for the younger generations.
Questions start arising. Why should we care? Even if they know that Germany was responsible for the Holocaust and for the murder of millions and millions of other people in Europe, they say, we're not that generation, it's not our responsibility. We can't remember history the same way. History is dynamic, and each generation has to discover anew what it learns from history and how to maintain the narrative and expand it in a way that's relevant for today.
Another stop, a look inside a secret prison in Berlin. It was run by the Russians, then the East German secret police called the Stasi. Our tour guide Peter Kepp spent 10 months in a Stasi prison. He recalled incidents of torture and the horrible conditions they were forced to live in.
Learning from the history, learning from the dictatorship means you get more what it's all about.
To this day, Peter has many unanswered questions. After his brother died, he found out he was a spy.
It wasn't all work while we were here in Germany. We had some fun along the way.
We had a little bit of a break. We had a chance to see some amazing sights in 2 countries. The Cologne Cathedral draws millions of visitors each year. It also has incredible history. The cathedral was built more than 600 years ago, and it was meant to house the remains of 3 kings. Visitors say pictures and videos don't do it justice. There's nothing like seeing it in person.
I was very much impressed. I've never been up to the roof, and I was astonished of how much metal was there.
You can even get a beautiful view of it from across the Rhine River. Also in Cologne, love locks. It's one of the city's most charming traditions. Couples show their love by putting padlocks on the railings. However, we found there are mixed opinions about it.
I think it's a safety problem for the bridge, actually.
Just now when we were walking along the bridge, we have been talking about this, and I'm just like, oh, I will not participate.
I have a friend who's from Cologne, and he said that he received 3 of these locks from 3 different girlfriends, and every time they locked it, they broke up.
For you romantics, don't worry. We did meet some couples who thought it was a great gesture of love. However, they didn't want to go on camera. There are similar bridge areas in Paris and London.
Here's a cultural difference. In America, we wear our wedding rings on our left hand. Not here in Germany, it's quite different. They wear them on the same finger, but on the right hand.
For many German couples, the wedding ring is also the engagement ring. However, they do both wear the rings on their left ring fingers during the engagement period.
If you have a sweet tooth, we have just the place for you. A popular chocolate in the U.S. first started in Belgium. Godiva was founded in 1926 in Brussels, and we found a Godiva store there. Brussels is also considered the chocolate capital of the world.
Soccer is probably the most popular sport in Europe. Some there compare it to the NFL in America. The home team, Hertha Berlin SC, which ended up winning the game, took place at Olympia Stadion, a sports stadium with some interesting history. It was originally built for the 1936 Summer Olympics. The stadium also hosted 3 matches in the 1974 FIFA World Cup. Then it was renovated for the 2006 FIFA World Cup.
We felt honored to have been chosen for the Fall 2019 Rias Berlin Commission program. 10 journalists from all over the country were given this amazing opportunity. Here's some history on this binational organization. Shortly after the end of World War II, the U.S. founded RIAS, which stands for Radio and the American Sector. For many East Germans, the station was the only reliable source of news that wasn't filled with propaganda. With the fall of the Berlin Wall, the mission of RIAS was accomplished. A new relationship began between the United States and Germany.
I think the world has discovered that Germany is a lot like the United States in a lot of ways, looks up to the United States.
The Rias Berlin Commission sent German journalists to the U.S. in the fall of 1993, starting what is now a full-fledged exchange program.
Journalists here face a lot of the same challenges that we do.
It's been incredibly motivating to want to go home and work harder. Just you soak up all the energy of all your colleagues and their passions for what we do as journalists.
That's the real valuable part of our program, is that German journalists get to spend a week in Texas or in Oklahoma or South Dakota, and they come back and it changes their lives.
Thank you for joining us for this special report from Berlin, Germany. I'm Monica Quintero.
And I'm David Wagner, and thanks most of all to the Rias Berlin Commission for making this possible.